am Dr. Joan Coleman, and the exchange is exciting.
I'm Denise Cavalier. The exchange is real.
I'm Carolyn Poinker. The exchange is empowering.
I'm Donna Hutchinson. The exchange is thought-provoking.
The exchange, a Let Me Be Me podcast. You're teetering. Let's find your balance. But before we do, let's introduce the ladies. Ladies.
Donna Hutchinson.
Carolyn Poinker.
Denise Cavalier.
Welcome to the Exchange, a Let Me Be Me podcast. We're here to uplift, to inspire, to motivate, and to affirm. Listen, and we are here to love on you as we love on ourselves. Today we're talking about speaking is healing, finding balance in releasing. Oh my goodness, what a good topic. You guys know the chakras? The blue one is for your voice. And once that's crammed up and tight, it's just no talking, right? So why is it so difficult difficult for us to speak our truth? What are we afraid of?
Are we afraid of hurting people's feelings?
Yeah.
Speaking of chakra, I want to point this out. If your jaw is tense, that means you're not saying what you mean to be saying. Mm-hmm. So if you feel a little tension there, that's a sign.
That's a sign. That's a sign that you should speak what you say. But what did you say before? We don't want to hurt people's feelings? Mm-hmm. In this society, in social media, I think there's a lot of open chakras.
A lot of chakras that ought to be closed.
Yeah, that ought to be closed. There's a lot of open ones. Carolyn, what were you thinking?
So a few years ago, I suggested this topic because a few years ago, I had a Reiki master say to me, you're getting throat infections all the time because you're not speaking your truth. She's like, Carolyn, I've been tracking it. Every time you get yourself into something you don't want to be doing, but you don't say that and you say yes to it, you're getting sick. And I thought on that, and she was so right, and I've worked really hard on it for about 4 years now. For me, I had this feeling that I had to say yes to everything. Mm-hmm. I was only worthy if I was helping everybody to my peril. Obligation, and I couldn't say no, and I would get myself in these just terrible situations. So for me, it was not having enough self-worth to say this isn't the right thing for me. I can say no.
Can say no. What about you, Denise?
I think it's true that when we hold things in, it shows up somewhere in our body. Like it could be the throat, could be the stomach. Yeah. I mean, it could be, depending on where your Achilles heel is. But I think, when we hold things in. But, sometimes we have to search for appropriate ways to communicate. And sometimes that's the problem. Yeah. We don't want to lash out, in anger or a way that would be hurtful. We want to have a good outcome.
When I was younger, I used to get a lot of stomach just things. Like if something happened and I'm like afraid or something, it goes right here to my belly. Like whatever it is, it will go to my stomach. So I do believe that if you're holding yourself back from something, if you're like constantly saying yes when you want to say no, it does show up in your body. So what if we spoke with intention? What if we spoke our true feeling? Would we find balance in that?
I think of how much release would come from that. Just instead of being so tense, wouldn't we feel a little bit more relaxed, and then everything just flows better, and then you're not coming from a place of tension and anger, you're actually coming from a place of flow, which might come with more truth and more love, hopefully.
And I think you're right. The way we say it could come out hurtful. So, but I think, again, if our intention is to speak our truth and not be unkind to people, our intention is always to be kind. We can say it right. I have a friend who didn't want to work on opening up her throat chakra and speaking her truth because she was afraid she would be unkind, and she's a super, super kind person. And I said, no, it doesn't work that way. You're not opening up anger and meanness. You're opening up, this is me, and if we're loving people, and we're going to speak our truth in love. And there are times, right, where you're going to hold back because the thing doesn't need to be said. But then that's not our truth. That's something else.
That's such a good point, too. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, my mom, she speaks her truth. Listen, your mom's a Judy, my mom's a Cynthia. And she's just, sometimes you're like, Mom, you know, she has no problem with her throat chakras. So I think I'm kind of like her. I speak my truth. I speak it in love, but sometimes people don't like, did she just say that? They don't know how to take it. And then here you go back again with the self-examination. Did I say the wrong thing? You know, I didn't mean it that way, you know. And so do you find that when you do speak your truth, it's a lot of self-examination? Did I say the right thing, Denise?
Yeah, we don't always get, even when we speak the truth in love and we do have pure intentions and, you know, our goals are good, we don't always get the reaction that we want because, you know, it takes time sometimes for people to process what you've said. And so the reaction you get might not always be what you want. And the other thing I think we need to do is really examine our intentions because sometimes we're coming from a sort of selfish motive for saying something, whatever, to release our pent-up frustrations, and so I think looking at our motives is important. Yeah.
Looking at our motives is important. And you know, I don't know, I might have told this story before. One Christmas I was so excited, but I didn't have any gifts to bring, so I thought I would speak a word into people's life. And so I'm like, this is gonna happen, da-da-da. Next thing you know, I get home and everybody's mad at what I said, and you need to apologize or you're going to be kicked out of the group. Yes! What? And I thought I spoke in love. I thought I spoke it from the heart. I thought I heard from the Lord. I'm just speaking good things into you. They did not like what I had to say.
Wow.
So it took me a minute. I was so devastated. I cried my eyes out because that was not what it was supposed to look like. It was Christmas. I was giving what I had, which was words, you know, and they just took it all the wrong way. So I prayed and I prayed and I cried and I cried. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to I say this, suffer the wrong for the right. So I said, I would apologize. So I did. And then they were all fine. But it was just like I was one back and they're all there and you're like, you're not going to be in this group until you apologize, you know. So have you ever found that happening, like where you said something and you have to apologize for it?
Oh, sure. Sometimes people aren't ready to receive.
Yeah.
You know, and then sometimes that miscommunication of your intention. But in that example, like you had such good intention, but they just weren't ready for it. But that's still hard. I'm not going to pretend that's like, oh well, I spoke my truth and I felt fine about it. No, I would internalize that completely.
Yeah. My husband said that they weren't ready. It was just like you just said, it was the wrong time. But you know, did you have to ever apologize for speaking how you felt, even if it's in love and it's real and it's true?
For me, I'm thinking of this situation where, and it's kind of ongoing and maybe a bit of a mess. I decided to say something to somebody, pure intentions, but they like focused on like a very fringe piece of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, just like, what? That was like such a little piece of this whole thing. This is like all of it and you're focused on this. So I did eventually have to apologize, mostly to get her to stop talking about it. But it to me, and she did, she missed the whole point of it. So it was sort of, it totally backfired. And again, it's a year later, we're still in the midst of this. I decided I was going to have another part of the difficult conversation, but I wanted to wait till after the holidays. Oh, she triggered me on Christmas Eve, and I had a little amygdala hijack and sent a text message. No, nothing like in the message was bad, but it was just like, should have been done in, like with my voice and, you know, but like I was just sort of done. Like, I can't take it anymore. So, I don't know. Sometimes we have all these good intentions and we still mess up.
Yeah.
I haven't apologized yet. And what's the date?
Way after Christmas Eve. Denise.
I don't know. I have a couple things. I think that sometimes, when somebody misunderstands my intentions or the delivery, I will obsess about that because I got to set it straight. I got to get it right and make sure they understand. And sometimes you just end up tying yourself in a knot over that. Sometimes you just have to release it for now, give it some time, and then maybe go back to it. Maybe not. Maybe just let it lie. And the other thing is, I think that like I have a friend that has, like early 20s kids or, older teenagers, and there's this word that they use called unsolicited. So there's unsolicited feedback, unsolicited advice,
Yeah.
where you really feel that you're doing that person a service by delivering this whatever, and they see it as unsolicited.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you for
Yeah.
that. Why are you telling? It makes them angry. So I don't know how to deal with that unsolicited issue, especially as a parent, because as parents, we give lots of unsolicited, direction and advice. And I guess it
Yeah.
depends on the kid's age, but that word sticks in my mind, unsolicited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're a teenager, you're going to get my unsolicited
Yeah.
advice. And I don't care what you think about it. My throat chakra is open for that. Listen, you guys, if you're listening today, tell us, is there anything you had to apologize for? Is there anything that you have said that you didn't mean it the way the person took it? Put it in the comments below. Let us know, and we will get back to you. Now, ladies, does love play a role in what we say? Like, what role does love play in speaking and releasing and finding balance?
I mean, if we're going from my highest self, the version I want to be the most, I would only speak in love, only see everyone and everything they do in love. Is it that way all the time? No, but that's the thing I strive for, and it's just what I try to do the most. I mean, I think we all do it just doesn't always work out that way.
I'm kind of thinking too that sometimes we have to make decisions to not speak because it's not, you kind of have that data from other times where it's not going to be accepted correctly, and you need to know that too, and that's loving yourself, protecting yourself. I think that
Asking is this worth it? Is this worth what it's going to potentially spiral into? Do I really want to go down that path or stay here? That is such a good reflection.
Yeah, because
point.
most of the times we have in our minds the way the conversation is going to go.
Yeah.
Most of the time, before you even say a word, you're like, I'm going to say this, they're going to say this. Do you find it?
Oh, yeah, you kind of know how it's going to go. I mean, some of it's about reading the vibe, of the other person. Like, where are they at? Like, if they're all stressed out, and sometimes I'll be in that, like, the match mood, which is not productive at all. It's not a good idea. So wait for a better time. So discernment, I think, really plays into it. Feeling the other person's vibe, knowing where I'm truly coming from before I open that door and go down that path. Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead, Carol.
I find myself playing out how things are going to happen if I know I'm going to a situation where somebody is maybe more challenging for me to be with. And I try to stop that too, because I feel like it sets me up that when I get there, I'm like a little bit lower, because I'm like, oh, in my head, we've already had this argument or whatever. So sometimes just saying, no, we don't know what's going to happen. Let's just go. I use a spearmint. It's really good for opening up your throat chakra, speaking your truth. Again, always in love. And hoping that, you can just get through those things.
Yeah. It's hard, but it's easy. It depends on the person or the group or where you are. I remember when I was doing the Gap show, I would just get like, and I'm like, I had to open my throat chakra, whatever that means to anyone. To me, I just had to make sure I was able to speak well. But now for this show, I'm just like, and I love it. So do you find that it's easier when in different situations? Like, is it easier to speak on your job, or is it easier when you're home, you just let everything out? I remember when my son was in preschool, he wouldn't say a word in school. But once he got in the car, he tells everything from the moment he got there till the end of the day. So that's the line of what I'm saying. Do you find it easier to speak in certain instances or certain places with certain people?
Certainly, and I want to say this it's a permission I feel like I would need to hear, so I'm going to share it. Not everyone gets permission to have the access to all of those parts of you. So not everyone needs to see, you know what I mean? Not everyone is entitled to seeing all those versions. So it's okay too if you don't share everything with everyone too. So you're allowed to call some of your energy back and keep it for yourself. But sure, like there's certain people we are vulnerable with, and there's certain people we're not.
I'm pretty comfortable speaking, wherever I am. And again, it's appropriate to the place where I am, and I have people, coworkers, and I have to exchange a lot of information. Now, if you're talking about a personal topic or an emotional thing at work, then that gets a little tricky because then you have to think about where you are and, what your goal is. But I really think it's about the end. What is the goal of the communication? Why are we doing it? And again, like Donna said, with really protecting ourselves and, and sharing what we want to share. Yeah.
Right. Do you find that, Carolyn?
I mean, I just recently did like an online training because I was going to start this support group for this society, and I was marveling. That's what we were there for. And there were so many people who couldn't even like ask a question, or when we would get into small groups, virtually get into small groups to like create something that we were going to present. It was like, oh, don't pick me. I can't speak. And I was like, well, why are you here? I was a little confused, but just judgmental, so I apologize. But yeah, I just feel like, I think when I was a kid, oh my God, you couldn't get me to talk. I would have been so afraid. But yeah, I think I've just done enough work, and now it's like, if it's a work thing, I have no issues. I think certain ones, are harder.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
a talker. Go ahead, Denise.
Well, I think if somebody means a lot to us, like if we care about the person, the stakes are higher, right?
Sure.
And which doesn't seem really fair. We should always be really careful, but I do think the stakes are higher when it's somebody we really care for.
Yeah.
And we want it to work out good.
And that was my next question. If you see somebody crying, if you see somebody low or whatever, do you speak healing into them, or do you speak healing into yourself?
Sure. I think it goes both ways when you're doing that. That's such a good point. The more you do for others, you're doing it for yourself as well. So yeah, we all benefit that way.
Oh yeah.
Do you?
I've been trying to get a little bit better of asking if people want the advice or they just want to vent.
Yes, that is. I was going to say that too.
Yeah,
that's a big thing.
And even yesterday, somebody texted me something, and I said, "I know you didn't ask me for this advice, but in case you want it, this is what I would say to that." And then she wrote back and asked me to like follow up questions. So I guess she didn't care that it was unsolicited, but yeah, like you can say like, what do you want from me? Because I have something to say, but sometimes people don't want it. The other thing is I have one sibling that I have a really tough relationship with, and I feel like it's so bad that like I'm a little freer too, because like it's so bad. Like could it get worse? It couldn't. And so at recent thing, she made a comment about me being gluten-free. I've been gluten-free in 5 years, and every family event she talks about me being gluten-free. And I finally said to her, why do we have to talk about this every time? I haven't been gluten-free in 5 years. And I just walked away. I don't even think I heard her answer because it didn't need an answer, because I think she does it just to make me feel bad. And I mean, I guess I'm assuming, again, shouldn't do that, but I just feel like we're such in a bad place. I was like, I don't want to hear it anymore, so I'm going to tell you, I'm done.
Yeah. You have to speak your truth. My sister always tells me I'm gluten-free. It's so funny today. We're just so connected. I was like, you're gluten-free. You can't eat that. And I'm like, I'm eating it anyway. And I'm like, oh. She's like, you're gluten-free. But it's the same. It's the same thing. I'm telling you. So listen, how do we find balance? How do we find balance in releasing?
I just start to really notice how you feel, because for me, I remember a very specific time in my life when I felt like being gossipy and being judgmental started to feel really uncomfortable in my body, and I kept doing it anyway, don't get me wrong, still do to this day at times, but like you start to feel it when you feel bad, and I'll notice really when I speak well and speak like happy, like if me and my husband are talking about something cheerful, it's like, oh, that actually feels better. So it's like I try to lean into those sorts of things that I notice within myself, and we always try to lean towards the happier side.
Yeah.
Actually, this morning I said to one of my kids, I need to say something. And I said, I just need to say it because I feel like it's trapped in me and I don't really need a comment. I'm not asking for anything. I just need to know somebody heard me. And I said it, and he looked at me and he went, And he had a really actually very mature response for a 16-year-old. But I think I do that a little bit. Like I feel this thing weighing on me and trapped inside of me, and I just want to say it. I want to get it out. I'm thinking this. It's not healthy for me right now. I also, sometimes if you don't have the right person to say it to, you can write it. That can get it out.
Yeah.
I'm having all these crazy thoughts or whatever. I have this thing and I'm not sure what my truth is, or I want to say this, but I don't think I can because they might take it the wrong way. You write it down, and that can be releasing
That's
it,
good.
and then your body has let go.
That's real good. That's real good. We don't ever think of writing things down in
And
this
then you
day.
can burn it.
Yeah.
Nobody
really
writes
mad.
anymore.
Yeah,
And when
nobody
you
writes
find it
anymore.
later, it's kind of fun sometimes. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, look at
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
had this thought 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And look how far I've come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't even a problem anymore. Yeah, that's fun.
Yep.
I think recognizing too that some people, or for me, some people and situations or things are triggers for me. And recognizing that I know going into it that those things are triggers because maybe once I get angry, then I may not be as careful about what I say. So, before you even open your mouth, I'm trying to recognize that some people can trigger me. And it's usually somebody that I care about and they're upset or they're angry. And so then it puts me on edge. And so just being careful and trying to, I don't know, maybe develop strategies, being aware and then developing strategies. The next time I go into that situation, I could do this or I could do that.
Yeah. To our listeners out there, listen, what triggers you? What makes you angry? And what strategies do you have to combat all of that? When you feel down, when you feel mad, when you feel angry, what do you do to combat all of that? Put it in the comments. We're going to get back to you. And that's the same question I want to ask you ladies. What do you do when you're so angry? Do you keep it in? Do you wear a mask? Do you say, I'm not going to say anything? Or do you let it out? How do you handle it?
I realized very recently that if you don't address anger, it comes back later as resentment. And then, it just kind of compiles until you move it out. So either speaking it, fine, but then there's also like writing it out, slamming a pillow, movement, all of that. You have to get it out of your body or it does stay stuck. So no matter how we deal with it, we have to deal with it preferably in a healthy way, but it does have to move. So you got to give it space to do its thing.
That just reminded me of something. You ever go through something in a day and then you get to bed and say, I should have said this. I should have said no, I should have let her have it. But then you didn't when you had the opportunity. But when you get down by yourself, you think of all the glorious things that could have triggered that person to feel the way you felt. Right?
Well, I always joke that my brain is like a couple hours off sometimes, and it just needed time to you're like, darn, that would have been a great thing to say.
Yeah.
But, sometimes we don't have it at the moment. We just don't.
Yeah.
And it's hard to process in the heat of the moment and to do it well.
Yeah.
But again, life is just practice, I think. Everything's practice, learning to do things better and, learning not to lose my voice.
Yeah. I want to have it right then.
I know.
I don't want to wait till I go to bed.
I had this great image though, and it stuck with me, where it's like a boiling pot, and when you're angry, it's just all those bubbles, and you can't see clear. It's only once the water stops boiling that you have that clarity, and that visual stuck with me. And I was like, good, because nothing good comes out of the bubbles.
Yeah.
Right.
It comes when everything's simmered down.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But you still don't get a chance to say it because you already said the foolery that you said earlier when this was so good, just you can release and balance. I was at a place, a luncheon or something, and I was sitting there and somebody said, you should stand. And I'm like, we're not even friends. You're telling me to stand. But I didn't say it out loud. I said it on the inside and I stood up. Then I got home that night. I'm like, I can't believe you stood up. You should have said da. But that's how it is sometimes. Sometimes you're just in the moment and you're just doing the right thing. If it's compliance or whatever it is, that's right. You're not blowing up. You're not getting angry and stuff. So trust yourself, right?
And then
it's
go home and shake it off.
And shake it off and let it go and move forward, right? And then you'll find they're so much better for it. Give some tips to help somebody that's listening.
shake it off. Be it the anger, be it the later response. There's nothing you could do about it at some point. Speak as much healing as you can while you can do it, and shake off the rest as best we can.
Carolyn, what's some tips you got?
Well, I think anger building up to resentment is been in my life, and I'm working on that. So I think it's really important to find somebody to tell it to. Tell them whether you want advice or not, so you don't have to listen if you don't want to. Write it down, let it go, and, try to process it so that you're not holding it in, because, Your body is holding it and it's causing problems, and you're going to think not clearly and just let it go. Let it go.
That's great advice. I think the best thing I could say is anger is a hard emotion, and we don't, like as children, we're not always taught that we can release it, that it's okay. It seemed like, shameful, like we should hold it in. So recognize that anger is a very difficult emotion, and maybe other emotions for different people, and just be okay with that. Like, give yourself a break.
Yeah,
It's a tough one. Yeah.
Find balance in releasing. If you're like, I can't do this anymore, go outside, scream to the top of your lungs, scream at traffic. But don't, if somebody stops and try to chase you, run. Just let it out as best as you can. And remember, you have control of you. Like Donna said, it's bubbling, the pot is bubbling. Just calm down, breathe. Think good things until that water settles. And don't worry about when you go to night and you get that self-talk telling you should have said this, should have said that. Shut that down. It's okay. It's already done. You've moved past it. And just hold on to those things that's close. Hold on to healing opportunities. Hold on to love, self-love talk. Hold on to those things and know that you are going to be all right. Make sure your throat chakras is clear, and make sure you're saying good things. Make sure your jaw is not tight. If your jaw is tight, just say what you got to say, release it in love, and let it go, right?
Even just screaming.
Yeah, scream.
Even if you don't know the words, scream. That'll unhinge all that stuff.
You just got to watch. Somebody might think you're unhinged at that point. Send out the paddy wagon.
Yeah. Just do what makes your soul happy. Be kind. Walk in love. And if you have any questions, if you have any similarities to any of these stories, put it in the comments below. We'll get back to you. And you can find us on CNJN TV. You can find us on CNJN Facebook page. You can find us on Let Me Be Me and Jay Facebook page. You can find us on Vimeo. You could find us on Anchor FM, Spotify. We are everywhere, ladies. And guess what? We're even on LinkedIn. What? Yes. Yes. So you can find us everywhere, and share, tell people about the XChange, all right? And it's a Let Me Be Me podcast, because we want you to be inspired. We want you to be motivated. We want you to be your authentic self. And I know you could do that. I have faith in you, right?
Yes.
So, ladies,
Donna Hutchinson.
Carolyn Poiker.
Denise Cavalier.
and this is the XChange. I am Dr. Joan Coleman, and this is the Let Me Be Me podcast. See you next time. Bye.
Bye. See you soon. Bye.